Browns, they're putrid. They're the worst team in the NFL.
The 2024 season is over.
Lamar Jackson can't win the playoffs. He'll win a third MVP, though, so that's great. Drew Sample is the most important piece of the Bengals offense next year.
Go Joe Burrow. He deserves to be MVP. I wish he was the Browns quarterback. Kind of mean that.
If you're looking for the most reactionary, silly, and unserious show on the internet, then you're home. Live from Hamilton, Ohio, it's Off the Bench by Chatterbox Sports on 1410 ESPN Radio.
All right, good morning, everybody, and welcome in. And let's see, if you had 10:07 on your bingo card, you win. You win, yes. When Kenner's gone, the show starts on time. When we come back, it's, the point is it started, right, Jacob?
That's right.
The show started.
That's right. We're off and running, and it's nice to be back. It's nice to be back. It's a weird week. Missed Monday, Tuesday, and then back Wednesday, off Thursday, back Friday. Can't get back into the swing of things whatsoever.
Well, after the incident, the F-bomb tirade.
That's right.
From
Just the incident.
Just the incident. You served your suspension, and now
That's right.
it's Elliot's turn. I have decided that I think he needs to have more time to think about what he did, and he's in timeout for a little bit. But no Elliot today. Shout out to Elliot. We'll get him back next week. But who's that sitting across from you over there in the Hamilton studios? Who is that? Who is that?
Hey, la mataquita de cacahuerte. Ay, que pasado, Qatar que traes la escuela, la biblioteca.
That's right.
De español la escuela?
So here's the thing. I don't know a whole lot of Spanish. What I do know is the vocab words you learn like in 4th grade. So la escuela, la biblioteca is the best I got. So there we go.
So people don't know. So my mom's side of the family is Hispanic, so I'm half Hispanic. And when I was in college, I had passed all of the courses I needed to graduate. I could not pass Spanish to save my life. Like, it was the last Spanish course I needed. I had got to the final one, and I was like, this is impossible. I can't do this. I don't know why. It's the language of my people, and I cannot figure it out. So I went to the professor. I said, listen, I was like, I can't afford to keep coming back and back and back just to take this one dang class. I've already disappointed my Hispanic side of the family by not being able to pass this course. I desperately need it. But I finally did it. I finally graduated in the amount of time it takes people to become a doctor at the end of the day. But
yeah, that's got to be a tough sell at home. I didn't do well in my foreign language classes either, but my parents don't speak a foreign language. So I feel like I kind of get a pass in that lane.
See, you guys messed up. The key to taking a foreign language class is by taking a language that no one speaks anymore. In high school, I took 4 years of Latin. Never had to speak it out loud. So there you go. That's how you do it.
I always wondered what was going through the kids' minds when they picked Latin in high school. It's like, no one speaks it. What's it for?
Well, I think it helped me in test taking.
Writing and stuff.
Right, like, because you realize, oh, that's what this means.
Yeah.
I'll say this. We got iPads at Baden my final 2 years, and they had Google Translate, and there's a Latin Google Translate on it. And I remember our teacher sitting up in the front of class going like, if you use Google Translate on our translations, you will get a B, maybe a B plus on your grade. And I was just like, okay. Yeah. think I'm striving for A's over here? I'm in Latin. I'm taking a language no one's speaking anymore.
Locking in a B plus with Google Translate is a bad move on that teacher's part. I'll tell you that right now.
Yeah, that's right.
How smart is Baden that they're threatening you with B's? All high achievers over there, that a B is all of a sudden like a threat all of a sudden.
Well, I'm completely transparent about my academic career. I graduated with 115 kids at Baden High School. My GPA was 2.7. Not very good, but
not bad.
I passed.
Yeah.
Guess what my class rank was out of 115? If you guessed 101, you'd be right. Only 14 kids were dumber than I at high school. So there you go.
I wonder do you know any of those kids? Like, what are they doing today? Your former classmates. Is there anyone that ranked below you that is just killing it in life right now?
We'll do a segment just talking to those 14 kids.
I think Sean Connor was below me. So I think that's one guy. Sean Connor might have been the only one. I also didn't take the introductory exam that you have to take to go to Baden. My dad was like, what are you talking about? Like, I ain't paying money for an exam. So they just threw me in all the low classes. and I never got out of them. I just stayed in them forever.
Nice.
And I felt like Matt Damon in Good Will Hunting at times in those classes.
By the way, this might be it's a Friday, if you guys can't tell. Happy Friday. Off the Bench. I guess it's, let's see, we're 5 minutes in. I should say welcome. Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. We hope. I hope they haven't quit on us after this first 5 minutes of this show. But by the way, I do think it's really cool what we do with Chatterbox Sports, because there's not a lot of shows out there that when hosts are busy, that the show can continue to go on. Reed, you've been filling in for well over a week and some change now, whether it's filling in for Jacob, filling in for all of us yesterday, you and
He's
Trace.
been in everyone's seat.
Yeah, you're a jack of all trades, my friend. Good job.
He's Gavin Lux.
Yeah. Oh, no. Trace, we run this like the Reds? Oh, no.
I can play outfield too. So, if you need me to play outfield, I'm your guy. The Reds, most improved team. Not to spoil a segment later.
Exciting.
Not the most. Or are they? I didn't even pay attention. Oh, wow. Look at that. They are. We'll get to that in a moment. That's wild. That's rich. So yesterday we had a chance to go, to the media luncheon over at Great American Ballpark. Really cool. I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know if Terry Francona and Marty and all them would be there. And Terry Francona came in, worked the room, did what he did. We got to get, talk to him for a few. That was pretty neat. Very cool experience. We got to hit in the batting cages, got to get a tour of the clubhouse. We took a family photo. It's very adorable. I wish we had our Christmas hats for the Card next year. But it was a really cool experience yesterday. I will say this: you talked about how you're an outfielder. They may need you. I don't think we're getting an outfielder. I don't think we're getting one more addition made to this roster. Did you get that vibe yesterday, Jake? That there's more. That the cavalry is coming. Do you think we're getting help?
They were really, really happy with the guys they've gotten so far. And they were really hammering that home, that they got some good pieces so far. So I'm not exactly leaving that thrilled or excited for the way that I expect the rest of this offseason to go. Might definitely think we're closer to being done now than I did going in, which isn't the best spot to be mentally. But, hey, it was a fun experience. Got to talk to Tito, which was really, really cool, and he controls a room like someone who's won a couple World Series, like someone who's an elite Hall of Fame level manager, and you can see why he's been so successful, because he just the way he speaks and carries himself around the players and around the fans.
So, Reed, I have a question. Have you ever cussed in front of a president of baseball operations before?
Let me think. No. I haven't spent a whole lot of time around Jed Hoyer or Theo Epstein, so no, I haven't.
If we rephrased Elliot's question on air, we'd have to clean it up.
Well, I've cussed a lot. It was awesome.
It was awesome.
Now, Elliot, if you're listening and watching, don't get. I know, because he's going to get all worried about how we perceived what he did. He didn't do anything wrong. It was a great question. We all know that the Dodgers are the big bad evil empire of baseball right now. But I'd asked before, they were doing a Q&A. I said, Elliot, are you guys going to do a question? I'm introverted as can be, which is wild working in the industry I do. But I was like, I'm not asking a question. I'm hiding over here. Elliot said no, which surprised me. Jacob, no, didn't do it. Obviously Casey didn't. The next thing I know, I see the lady walk behind us with the mic and hands it to Elliot. And I'm like, oh, of course Elliot's going to do it. I knew he would once he got comfortable. I didn't know what he was going to ask. Marty was up there, so I figured he was going to ask Marty a question. And no, he directed the question towards obviously the president of baseball operations and Nick Krall, and said, hey, when you see what the Dodgers are doing, does it motivate you to want to kick their ass during the regular season? I thought it was unbelievable. The entire room started laughing. It was a great question. And, man, did he get the most coach speak answer I think I've ever experienced in my life, Jacob. There was no entertaining response whatsoever.
Yeah, no, definitely a good question. One I think most people in the room wanted to ask, but were worried to ask. And yeah, Elliot did. And he got the answer that I think most of us expected, but, not exactly what anyone wanted to hear. Nick Krall basically said that you can't look at what anyone else is doing. You got to focus on what you're able to do and who's in your locker room. And, you want to beat everyone. It doesn't matter who they are and, all that good stuff. So, yeah, exactly the answer that you'd expect.
To be fair, the question was directed towards Tito and Nick Krall. Nick Krall jumped in. Nick Krall made sure he demanded the mic in that one. In Elliot's defense, the smile from ear to ear on Tito's face, though. Tito wanted to answer that.
Oh, yeah. He had some things to say.
Yes, and they made sure to move quickly from that question. Let's just put it that way. But, yeah, Nick Krall, he's not worried about the Dodgers. All you can all you could do is what you can do, and sometimes not even that when you're the Reds. So.
Fair.
Yeah. But no, we are back and rolling today off the bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. Obviously, we got Reed in the producer chair, just Jacob and I here today. Appreciate yesterday, Trace, dusting off the old mic and coming in and sitting. What did you guys talk about yesterday, by the way, Reed?
I don't know if you guys have talked about this week, but we talked about Patrick Mahomes getting the benefit of the doubt on calls.
Ooh.
We talked about the Dodgers ruining Major League Baseball. Once again, don't know if you guys touched on that. We also talked about the conference championship. I think the one segment we did do that was unique was we said that the athletic director at the University of Cincinnati, John Cunningham, should be canned. So we did that one. I'll ask this question. Elliot's question about the Dodgers yesterday. For those that have been baseball fans for a long time, like myself, I don't ever remember it being this much of a powder keg. Like, I don't ever remember people being this upset about the state of the game. All the way back to steroids. Like, I don't remember there being so much vitriol pointed towards one direction, that is both Major League Baseball and the Los Angeles Dodgers. Kenner, you're obviously, I'm not going to age you too much here, but you're a little older than us. You've been around sports a little longer than us. Have you ever seen so much vitriol pointed in one direction? Like, it truly feels like we are on the break of a revolution, how tense it feels around baseball right now.
In baseball, no. And I've always thought baseball needs more. I think if baseball had more villains, that's why I thought that the Astros were great for baseball years ago. I'm not saying I was an advocate of them cheating by any means with the scandal, but I thought that was actually good for baseball because it gave there was a team that people were going to tune in to watch that wasn't their team. Baseball is so regional, but if you have a villain that you can't stand, I want to tune in. If the Astros are playing, on Sunday Night Baseball, so I'm going to tune in because I want to watch them lose. I want to watch them fail. And I think that the Dodgers are turning into that. The Yankees, the evil empire, they were the evil empire because of a lot of the things we're talking about with the Dodgers, although the Dodgers have taken it to another level, to be honest. I think baseball needs more villains. I think they need more villains because, if everything's just about all these teams that everybody likes and all these players that everybody likes, there's just no drama involved. And I think that when you have teams that people hate, now you have that good guy versus bad guy, almost that WWE type of thing. You know what I mean? I think that the Dodgers are good for baseball from that perspective.
I think the only time I can remember a sort of animosity like this was when LeBron went to the Heat and brought all those guys with him. I feel like most NBA fans, maybe not all, but most NBA fans really hated that and looked at that as a super team. And then again with the Warriors when KD left the Thunder. But even both of those times, we've talked about it now with however long we've talked about NBA ratings and stuff this year, those were two golden eras of the NBA because, you love to have that villain. So though it does, obviously stink as a small market fan to see what the Dodgers are doing, maybe this season baseball as a whole will, benefit from it because people will watch the Dodgers games and just root against them all the time. So
That's a good point.
I don't know if maybe the other teams will benefit in that way.
I think Kenner brought up a good point, and this is going to sound super nerdy to some people in the chat, but the WWE thing, you need a heel and you need a baby face. WWE was at its height when Vince McMahon was the biggest heel in the company, right? That's when they really soared off, is when Vince McMahon became he's the bad guy, he's the bad boss. So, yeah, I've always said that dynasties are good for sports, but I'll tell you, it feels like every time you get on Twitter, X.com, the Everything app, is that how they do the app?
Yeah, no, okay. You're doing the bit right.
Every time I get on there, it just feels like we're about to blow when it comes to baseball fandom. Like I said, we've all on this show, every single person that's been on this show at some point this week has done a long rant about the Los Angeles Dodgers. So it feels incredibly unique as a baseball fan right now.
I feel like everyone is kind of already penciling in lockout for after this CBA. So obviously we'll see how that goes when we get there.
Yeah, I think that's going to be that's when it's all going to boil over. I think a lot of the biggest criticism I've had about owners across baseball is no one's speaking out. What I like about college football, coaches complain about other teams who are getting advantages, right? We hear Lane Kiffin complaining about college football all the time. Nick Saban was very critical when he was coaching. The coaches let it be known, athletic directors let it be known when there's things in college athletics that aren't fair in their eyes. NBA owners, do a lot of the same thing. Baseball ownership, they're quiet. I would like to think that they're pissed off about what the Dodgers are doing, but you notice no one says anything. The fans are upset. But are the owners actually upset? Do they actually even care? They're getting their TV deal money. You know, the Dodgers spending all of their money is not costing the Reds money, right? At the end of the day, like the Castellinis aren't losing money because the Dodgers are spending all of this money. I just wonder about the competitive spirit and drive of these Major League Baseball club owners, because from my perception, they don't care. I would like to think they care, but do they care? Everyone's just dead silent on all of this when it comes to the people that can actually speak out and make a difference, and nobody is. We as fans, media, everyone's just complaining, but it's not doing anything. To me, I think it's going to take the other owners in baseball to revolt against what some of these bigger markets are doing, and I would like to think they'll do it. I just don't get any indication that they will. But maybe it's that lockout potential that's coming here in a few years.
Well, I think the reason you don't see any owners talking about it is because it would be bad optically if you're a billionaire crying, "I'm too poor."
That's
right. That's a bad look if you are Tom Ricketts of the Cubs and just going outwardly and saying like, "Hey, I know we have the third highest attendance in baseball. I know I'm a multi-billionaire, but I don't have the money to spend like the Dodgers." So it just fall on deaf ears and it look bad. So they're kind of in a rock and a hard place, because even though it might be true, even though the Castellinis and all these ownership groups might not be able to spend like the Dodgers and Yankees, you can't go out and say it, because we're looking, we're middle class, low class, wherever you are on the pedestal, you're looking up, and they're going, "We're too poor." It's just a bad look. So that's why they won't say anything.
Yeah, and I I've said it before. I think that the ownership of Reds and Pirates and others, that they do more to hurt baseball than the Dodgers. I know everyone's mad at the Dodgers. I don't have as big a problem with it as others do, just because I'll never be mad at a team for doing what I would like my team to do. I get mad at teams who cheat, just like I'd be mad if my team cheated. I'm not mad at a team for spending money, because ultimately I want my team to spend money. Yesterday we were sitting there waiting for the Reds to kind of, talk about some potential exciting, opportunities coming up. And the only thing they could tell us was about the new ice cream bar that they're putting in the outfield. I'm like, I don't really care about an ice cream sundae machine. I kind of want an all-star outfielder. That's really what I care about. But hey, keep putting those bourbon bars and ice cream machines out there, and whatever. But it is what it is. At this point. Off the bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers, Justin Kinner, Reed in the producer chair. We got Jacob. Shout out to Elliot and Casey. They'll be back next week. But we'll continue on. Again, this is Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. We'll be right back. And we are back off the bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers, Chatterbox Sports on YouTube, ESPN 1410, Wing AM in Dayton. Jacob, we got some super chats, correct?
I got nothing.
Maybe.
We got two super chats coming in while we were during our break. And first off, we have one. I got to find it again. Justin Edgel with a $1.99 super chat from yesterday's Reds Media Day. Did you guys smoke a doob with Tito? Sorry to let you down, Justin, but not in GABP. pretty sure that's a non-smoking facility. And then another one from Michael Rolfe. I saw you had some lines yesterday, Reed. I don't know if it hit yesterday, but the over-under half of Michael Rolfe Super Chat did cash today. 1999, Reed Mickey wearing Cubs gear, Kinner wearing OSU gear, Jacob in OSU gear, I'm wearing Louisville gear. Is this a reflection of Cincinnati sports being trash? Yeah, it is. It definitely is. And that's a sad place to be, but all the Cincinnati sports are garbage.
Is the mic working now? We good? We golden? No?
I don't know what's going on here.
That's okay. We'll figure it out.
There we go.
Testing, 1, 2. Look at us. Now we're rolling. Reed, all good. We're back and rolling. But yes, that is. I didn't know that. So people figured we were going to be decked out in OSU and Reed and Cubs. That's kind of what people thought, and that's how it panned out. How about that?
Yeah, I guess so. I think that's kind of expected now. I mean, put the Bengals gear away for a little bit, and we'll break it back out during draft season when I can get back excited about the team. Probably would have worn it yesterday if we were on the show with the Al Golden hire, to be honest. So there you go.
Hey, I want to ask your take on that too, because I know they touched on it. You did Chatterbox Bengals the other night. Is the fake Justin Kinner YouTube thing running right now?
I have not seen fake Justin Kinner in here yet today.
Okay. Just making sure. That was not me in the chat. I don't think anything bad was said, but just making sure.
I have not seen him today.
Covering my arse. What's that?
They did it in good faith, whoever it was. I don't think they said anything too terrible.
Okay.
So it's good. We do have another super chat. Are the long breaks for Kinner's smoke break? Is that true? Also, I want to say this is not a Cubs sweatshirt. This is C-Box original, guys.
Nice hat.
It is a Cubs hat, though. It is a Cubs hat.
I used to be the alcoholic on the show. Now I'm taking cigarette breaks.
They go hand in hand.
Yeah, But so Al Golden, obviously it's official. He's the new defensive coordinator for the Bengals. Look, it kind of took the surprise away just because we spent so much time on it, building up to it. It wasn't a matter of if, it was just a matter of when. And even the when surprised us because we thought it would need a little bit more breathing room. Of course, the day we talked about it 2 days ago, we figured, it'd need another day or two, and they announced it by the end of the day. But Al Golden, regardless of people's opinions, regardless of people's opinions on who should be the defensive coordinator, it does not matter. Al Golden, the DC for the Bengals moving forward. At the end of the day, whether it was going to be Lou Anarumo, Al Golden, Patrick Graham, or whoever, all that matters is whoever's going to be leading this defense is that they have the ingredients to cook a good meal. The Bengals did their part in getting Al Golden, but the job's not done. It's not as if they have to, that the job's done and the defense is automatically improved because you got a new DC. Part of what hurt Anarumo, regardless of your opinion of him, is the defensive players weren't getting better, whether that was Anarumo's fault or just the players not being as good as what we had anticipated. Something has to change. Al Golden's one of the changes, but the other change has to be the type of players they get in the draft and obviously the development and what we see from these players out on the field. And that's just going to be a big, long waiting game until we get to next season, of course.
Yeah, the hiring of Golden makes me believe, and it's kind of what we talked about on Chatterbox Bengals, is that they prioritize development. And I think some of these other guys obviously had more NFL success. We've talked, extensively about how desirable we all thought this job was, at least on paper, and it would come down to how much the Brown family would be willing to pay. But I think if you value development and focusing on revamping how we handle the draft and evaluate college talent, going to get the best college defensive coordinator is a pretty good way to go about doing that. I think Al Golden proved that he didn't just work here. A lot of people labeling him one of those retread hires, a classic Bengals move, if you will, to bring back a guy that was already in the building. But he had immense success at Notre Dame. They were a top 10 defense every year he was there. I brought it up on Chatterbox Bengals, and it's the take I've been running with since we hired him. Bengals fans would be much more excited about this hire if you looked at his, past jobs and it never said Cincinnati. If you just looked at his, resume and what he's done in his career and it wasn't in Cincinnati, I think Bengals fans would be thrilled. But just the fact that we've seen this happen, a couple times now with the Brown family and this organization going out to get guys that have already been here that they're familiar with instead of really spreading a wider net, I think that's why a lot of people are upset. And I think that's okay. But Al Golden is definitely a good hire, really, however you slice it. And I'm interested to see how he fills out the rest of his staff. We already saw Jerry Montgomery coming in, the old Packers D-line coach, now Patriots D-line coach for a year, coming down with him. A couple other openings still on the defensive staff, and James Rapien reported yesterday that the coaches that made it through the first round of firings might not be all the way safe. So could still have a couple more changes coming to that defensive side of the ball.
Reed, how are we feeling on your end?
So there's two things here. It can feel like the easy way out for the Bengals because it quite honestly just was.
Right.
Like it was the guy that was in our building 3 years ago, 2 years ago. It was a guy who never sold his house here in Cincinnati. But I think if you take all that aside and you look at it in a vacuum, it's a good hire. So, like, I saw someone, I forget which Bengals person it was on Twitter. They said it's an F process. It's a B to B plus hire, and that feels right on the nail, right? That feels like you hit it right on the nail because it was like everyone's sitting here looking around, going, "Why didn't we interview more people? Why didn't we go after bigger names?" I think probably the biggest name that we were linked to was Matt Eberflus, and that was for about 30 seconds a week and a half ago. So I don't know. It seems like when they fired Lou Anarumo, they knew right from the rip that Al Golden was the guy they were going to hire. Like it seems like before they even made the move to fire Lou Anarumo, they knew they were going to hire Al Golden. So yeah, if in 3 years our defense looks great, we look like geniuses. If in 3 years this defense is more of the same and it's still pretty bad, yeah, we look like morons. So it's literally just going to be a hindsight thing once it's done.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, right now, I don't think anyone could have a super hot take on this one way or another. This has to be a results type thing. I'll say this, though. The Cincinnati Bengals, like, when you look at Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, like, these guys are proof that, you know, when you get the best of the best, just look at how much of a difference it makes. Like, you know, Andy Dalton was good, solid, won games, got you to the playoffs, but there was a ceiling there. When you're just settling for guys that are good, solid, with a ceiling, are you really, you know, doing the best by your organization when you go and get those guys? And who knows, maybe Golden's going to be an elite defensive coordinator. We don't know yet. But when you look at Joe Burrow, you look at Jamar Chase, you see the impact that elite, what it makes on your team. You know, look at the 49ers. The 49ers are a team right now that they've been a Super Bowl contender for quite some time, and they've had a revolving door at quarterback. They had defensive coordinator. It sounds like Robert Saleh is going to be the guy. They went out and they got one of the best names defensive coordinator-wise that's out there. And I just feel like Cincinnati should have been more aggressive going for names like that. It's not a surprise that they didn't. But again, we're all saying the same thing. It's going to be one of those you have to just wait and see, and we'll see what happens right off the bat.
I do think even outside of money, though, something a lot of people brushed over with those bigger name candidates is if it works as good as we hoped it works, they're your DC for 1 year. If you hire Robert Saleh and it goes as well as you hope it works with him as defensive coordinator, the Bengals are probably holding up the Lombardi Trophy, and then he's doing interviews and being the head coach somewhere else. I think Al Golden is the best longest term answer at that position. And I think coaching continuity definitely means something when you have so much to fix on defense. If we're going to bring in a bunch of new guys to try to fill these holes, I don't know if switching to DC in 1 or 2 years is the best move, even though maybe we would have had more immediate success. So I think long term Al Golden's going to work in that way as well.
Before you go on, Justin, I think regardless of how Al Golden does, or pretty much anybody we hired, there wasn't going to be a long-term answer. Al Golden has been a head coach for 2 different college programs. Like, he has aspirations to be a head coach, and if he's good, he's going to get a job. Like, Al Golden, I think, will get a head coaching job, but it might be 2 years down the road. And you're right. I just think that regardless, we're going to be shuffling through a DC here in about 3 years. At the most.
Good or bad.
Yeah, like it's either he's going to get canned or he's doing good enough to get head coaching jobs. And
that's fair.
You give it to him because he made a Notre Dame team who never looked competent against major college football programs, against the SEC and other Big Ten teams, and they look competent. And if he turns this Bengals defense around and there's a lot of winning, then he's going to get a job. So I think whoever we hired was going to be a short-term answer, not a 6-year guy like Lou Anarumo was.
We do have, we're talking coaching, whether it's coordinators, right now the dominoes are starting to fall. We're starting to see, some of the teams that needed head coaches and coordinators, the coordinator dominoes are starting to fall. The head coaching dominoes are starting to fall. And a name that I actually really like, and I think that while other names were being targeted for the Raiders, the name that they ended up getting, Pete Carroll, it's official, I guess, according to some things I'm seeing on X right now. Pete Carroll is the official new head coach of the Las Vegas Raiders. Your thoughts on that? How do we feel about Pete Carroll in Las Vegas?
Pete Carroll is 73 years old, signed a 3-year deal with a 4th-year team option, so 76 at the time of that contract running out. Just seems like an interesting way to go when you're going to have to bring in a new quarterback, though I do think Pete Carroll is, an elite coach who obviously won a Super Bowl with Russell Wilson and had immense success at USC. And, he's one of the better coaches in all of football. And for them to get him, that's great. Again, talking about long-term answers, especially when you have young guys at the helm of your organization, I don't know how much I love that move, but if they hit on a quarterback quickly and Pete Carroll can usher him along into the NFL and then have a replacement for himself when he reaches whatever retirement age will be for him, I think that'll be a great hire. But I would definitely be interested about what that runway is to get your franchise quarterback and have Pete Carroll actually affect him in a way that can help you long term just because of the age. But I think that's a good hire, at least on paper, probably one of the better names left.
I think when it comes to Pete Carroll, everyone can rightfully point out his age. He's 73 years old. But have you ever seen a 73-year-old look that spry?
That's true.
My boy looks like he hits smelling salts every time he walks into a room.
It's that caffeine gum.
Right. He's always moving. Like, he moves better than some 50-year-olds.
That's
like,
true.
he truly does. And I think Fitz, we had Fitz on earlier on this week, and he said, listen, if he goes 3 years, if he get 3 years out of Pete Carroll, he beats the median average for the last 15 Raiders coaches. 15 coaches in 31 years. That's a little more than two years a pop. That's about 2 years and 15 days a pop.
Couple games, yeah.
Right. When things are out of control, and that's where the Raiders are. Things are out of control. You get someone to build it, right? You get someone to stabilize where you're at. And if you get 3 decent years out of Pete Carroll, it's better than 14 of the last 15 coaches the Las Vegas Raiders have had.
That's true.
By
Pete
the
Carroll
way,
had some front office connections to Seattle when he left there. I remember that being part of the holdup with his contract as well. The Raiders don't have a current GM, so I wonder how involved he'll be in that search as well for how he pairs himself with the front office.
has there ever been a division more loaded when it comes to head coaches than the West?
I don't
You look
think
at
so.
Andy Reid, you look at Harbaugh, now you add Pete Carroll, and then you have Sean Payton. That is, easily the best coach division in the NFL. Is it the best division? No, but it's the best coach division. But that is, to see Pete Carroll go up against Andy Reid twice a year, to see Sean Payton go up against Andy Reid and Pete Carroll and Harbaugh, those are some pretty big name coaches who have had beyond successful resumes going head to head. I think that's pretty neat. I just don't know what you could do with the Raiders right now because talked about those head coaches, but it also comes down to quarterbacks. You got to face Justin Herbert twice a year. You got to face Patrick Mahomes twice a year. Bo Nix doesn't send fear down your spine. I get that, but a very successful rookie campaign. And you would like to think he's only going to get better. The Raiders are behind the 8 ball. And look, 3 years, if you get 3 years out of Pete Carroll, it's going to take a year or two to find a quarterback, develop a quarterback, and get on track. I don't see where the Raiders go from here. But again, you feel confident, you feel comfortable having a veteran coach like Pete Carroll to kind of like Reed's point, just to add that stability to a franchise that desperately needs it at this point.
Yeah, Carroll and Harbaugh faced each other at USC and Stanford in the Pac-12. They then played each other in the NFC West and Seattle and 49ers, and now in the same division here. So that's a big-time coaching rivalry that's gone all 3 levels where they've been each time. Now that leaves 2 head coaching openings left. Mike Vrabel to the Patriots, Ben Johnson to the Bears, Aaron Glenn to the Jets, Liam Cohen to the Jaguars late last night. Kind of an interesting story with that one, but leaves the Saints and Cowboys open. Both those teams heavily connected to one candidate at this point. Brian Schottenstein, the Cowboys offensive coordinator this season alone, 1 year calling plays for them. He's reported to have a 5-hour interview yesterday that leads him to be the next head coach there. And then the Saints and Mike McCarthy are reported to have a handshake deal as well. So allegedly, all head coaching positions are full or working to be filled by probably the end of the weekend.
And there you go. Again, we were just waiting for those dominoes to fall. They kind of are. By the way, is there a coach that's being left out at this point, like that we thought would get a job? I guess Robert Saleh. I didn't think he'd get a head coaching gig. It sounded like his best shot was the Jaguars. He obviously didn't get that.
Right.
Is there a coach that's not going to get hired that we're kind of surprised? Like last year, the fact that Vrabel and Belichick didn't get hired was kind of surprising. Obviously, Vrabel now with the Patriots, and then Belichick with North Carolina, and that's official now, by the way.
Yeah.
Is there any coach that did not get? Oh, Mike McCarthy. I mean,
He's going to be the
odd
Saints. More than likely, he's going to be the Saints.
Oh, you just said that. Okay, my apologies. Well, yeah, so is there any coach that's not going to get hired that's a surprise in your opinion?
The interesting one to me is a guy that actually wasn't talked about much this cycle, but last cycle was talked about very heavily, and it was Bobby Slowick, the Texans' offensive coordinator. With what he did with C.J. Stroud last year in his rookie year, everyone thought he was going to be a hot name this cycle, and then obviously wasn't, and he'll be back in Houston. So I think him falling so quickly down that list was my most interesting takeaway.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Texans took a major step back
offensively.
Yeah. So that's where you got to strike while the iron's hot. I think we're seeing that with Ben Johnson finally taking a job after not taking one last year.
Reportedly wanted the Bears job, and then they didn't fire Eberflus, so he decided to come back.
Have the Bears ever made a worse decision in their history than not hire Jim Harbaugh?
Yeah,
like, how do you not hire Jim Harbaugh last year? He wanted to go there.
Right.
The two names that come to mind when I think of it's another year that we've done the whole coaching carousel is Marvin Lewis and Hugh Jackson. Are you surprised that they didn't get jobs, Ken Dog?
Hugh Jackson especially. Hilarious Jackson.
Hugh Jackson got the short end of the stick in Cleveland.
Yeah. They're just using that against him. I mean, 1-0-16 season, all of a sudden, can't get a job moving forward. Kind of wild.
For what it's worth, when you get these huge offensive coordinators that everyone wants. Hugh Jackson was unanimously praised when he was hired in Cleveland. He obviously won 3 games in 3 years or something crazy like that. So just be cautious when you're hiring the offensive coordinators. But much like quarterbacks, drafting a guy early in the first round, it's all about, can you hit a home run? You'll strike out more than you hit the home run, but if you hit the home run, you're in pretty good shape.
Yeah, Reed, we've talked on this show a lot on shows that you haven't been on, but like, to me, what do you truly judge something on? Is it the result or the intent? And Hugh Jackson is always the perfect example for that. People make fun of the Browns for hiring Hugh Jackson. I'm like, if you want to make fun of the results with Hugh Jackson, fine. But hiring Hugh Jackson was actually one of the smartest things the Browns have done at that time. Hugh Jackson was one of the most sought after offensive. He was the Ben Johnson of that time. But yeah, like a very good offensive coordinator that everyone was going after to become their head coach, and that ended up being a joke in Cleveland, and it really hasn't been able to regain that that view moving forward. The intent is there, obviously bringing Ben Johnson in to turn things around, but it has all the capabilities of turning into a laughingstock like what happened in that particular situation with Hugh Jackson. So we'll see what goes on there. By the way, I will say this. If I'm Mark McCarthy, I don't see what's wrong with sitting a cycle out. I wouldn't take the Saints job. I don't like the Saints job. How do you guys feel about the Saints job?
I don't like the Saints job if Derek Carr's not going to take a pay cut. I don't know how you can win games with a $40 million Derek Carr quarterback.
I think the Saints, because of Sean Payton, we forget that they were, before Sean Payton took that job, probably the worst franchise in the National Football League. Like, seriously, like they, I think, have the worst winning percentage out of all teams, besides maybe the Buccaneers, which are quickly going up the ranks. And they are in cap hell. They don't have their quarterback figured out. The roster is getting old, so it's not even like it's a young roster. You don't have to stretch truth too far to say, is this the worst job opening? It might be. Not
to mention Alvin Kamara is openly asking them to hire their interim coach. He's tweeted about it a couple of times. He's going to sit courtside at Pelicans games with their special teams coordinator. If you're Mike McCarthy and you get hired there and the face of the Saints didn't want you to be hired there all offseason, I don't know how easy that is to swallow. But in terms of him sitting out and not wanting to go to New Orleans, McCarthy was the Saints offensive coordinator before he got to Green Bay. So I assume he likes New Orleans, likes that franchise, and would probably want to go back if that was offered to him.
Yeah, like Mike McCarthy, I think, has to be careful. We've talked about how his resume is like identical to that of Mike Tomlin's, and Mike Tomlin's a leader of men. And, if they let go of him, teams would line up to get Mike Tomlin. And I'm not saying they wouldn't. I think that they would. But when you look at the resumes, they are absolutely identical. You know who McCarthy kind of reminds me of, although he does have a Super Bowl and Andy Reid did it at the time. If Mike McCarthy is patient and he lands himself a very good gig with the Super Bowl that he already has and the win percentage he already has and the success he's already had, he could easily, if he finds himself in the right spot with the right quarterback, take off and be viewed as one of the top coaches in football. I think going to the Saints is where his career will die because people blame, people didn't give him all the credit that he deserved technically in Green Bay because of the falling out with Aaron Rodgers. Dallas, people ignore the success he had there. I mean, three straight seasons of 12-plus wins. Honestly, one of the best offenses in the NFL every single season with Dak and everybody else. If you go to the Saints, you're done. I don't see how he would recover from that, and I don't see a path to winning. But we'll see what ends up happening there.
I think the worry for Mike McCarthy at his age and how he's kind of viewed around the league is if we get to next year and there's another wonderkind offensive coordinator that comes up, how far down the list does he slide? If he has an opportunity now, can he afford to wait until next year or the year after? I just don't know.
Yeah, I mean, the Jaguars' job, too. I'm surprised they didn't go that route with Mike McCarthy. The Bears and Jags are the two jobs I thought would make the most sense for him either way. All right, let's move in. I'm going to move this around. We're going to move over to buy or sell. Let's jump into some buy or sell when we come back. We'll get into AFC, NFC Championship weekend coming up here in a bit. We'll talk a little Cincinnati Reds coming up later on in the show as well. But let's move into our buy or sell portion of the show. We'll be right back. More Off the Bench when we come back. And we are back off the bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers, Chatterbox Sports on YouTube, ESPN 1410 Wing AM in Dayton. I'm making another twist real quick. Okay, so we're going to do buy or sell starting next segment. I just made that change in the middle of this just because we've touched on this already with the Buster Olney thing earlier in the week. Buster Olney put out his list, okay, of the top 5 most improved teams in baseball. And lo and behold, earlier, Reed, I didn't realize, I knew the Reds were one of those teams. I just didn't realize that he said they're the most improved team in baseball. That's where I'm now scratching my head. I was like, I kind of perked up a bit when I saw that Buster Olney had the Reds as one of the most improved teams in baseball. But to say when he put out his list, yes, the Cincinnati Reds come in at number 1 on this list, that the Reds are the most improved team in baseball this offseason. How could you say that when you look at what the Dodgers have done? I don't know how you improve even more than winning a World Series, of course. Buster Olney, Reds, most improved team in baseball. How are you perceiving this?
How am I perceiving this? I don't know. It's hard to say that anybody other than the Dodgers or the Mets aren't the most improved but they were already so high up there. But the Reds, you got to remember, they're bringing back so much talent that got hurt last year. So it's not hard to convince yourself that they are the most improved team just because what people are saying might be their best player behind Ellie De La Cruz is coming back. Matt McClain. CES, who had a terrible stint as a rookie, he's coming back. They still have high aspirations for him. Noelvi Marte is going to be here the whole year. So, it's not hard to get there that they might be the most improved team.
Yeah, I think there's more work to do, but I feel like that they've definitely done what they needed to do, gotten some pieces that they had to get. Still need that outfielder, but trading Jonathan India for Brady Singer and adding arms to that rotation, giving you some more versatility in that sense, having some young guys that are coming on, obviously some more games under the belt of those rookies that we believed in so much last year. I think there's a lot to be excited about the Reds. I do think a lot of people in Cincinnati are lower than people outside of Cincinnati, which makes me feel better about it because maybe we're falling into that. We're Reds fans. We've seen this song and dance time and time again that they don't do enough and then they underperform in the regular season and it stinks to watch. So we're trying to protect ourselves a little bit. But to see everyone picking the Reds to be one of those exciting teams yet again this year, that's exciting for me. And it's starting to get me back over that hump of excitement for this season just a little bit now, a little bit more than I was before.
Some of the reasoning that Buster Olney is kind of utilizing in this is the fact that, and by the way, Reed, my bad. I didn't realize you were messing with something in there when I put you on the spot. My apologies.
You're good.
One of the reasons that Buster Olney is kind of highlighting the Reds at this point and why he's so high on them is honestly just because of the emergence of Terry Francona in Cincinnati and some of the things that he is going to really emphasize focus on. Obviously, the Reds were, I guess, rated as the second best run team in baseball last year, like on the base paths and stuff, but obviously reckless. Cleaning a lot of that recklessness up is going to go a long way in helping take this team to that next level. He talked about the health, some of the key players being out last year. That's also another reason why this team could take that step forward. Just generally, just another season under the belt of a lot of these younger players. You know, we forget that these guys, just because they're called up to the majors, they're not a finished product. They still need 1, 2, 3 years in the majors before things really start to take off and they're comfortable. So I think when you add all of that on top of the Brady Singer deal, on top of the fact that you have Terry Francona, you know, you do have Nick Martinez, who, you know, we don't really know what his definitive role is going to be, but obviously they have depth at certain pieces that they're going to be able to have options, which is a good thing. I see why some people who aren't entrenched into covering and talking the Reds could feel so high about this team. You see Ellie, you see Terry Francona, you see some of the changes they've made in the offseason, and you feel like, look out, here they come. I think a lot of people, though, are still just holding on to what this team looked like in June of 2023, and we'll see if they can get back to that same type of feel and magic that they had in the previous season. But, yeah, I was a little surprised to see – not surprised that the Reds are one of the most improved teams on this list, but to be number one on that list I thought was kind of wild.
I just want to know what I'm missing. Like, what am I missing with this Reds offseason that has these people so high on the additions that we've made? I think they're good. I'm excited about them. I don't know where that extra – 10, 15 wins is necessarily coming from for this season for people to be picking the Reds to take this massive bump. I hope they're right, and I hope I've just been beaten down mentally by being a Reds fan my whole life that I can't get all the way in on this team. But, yeah, to see people that are a lot smarter baseball-wise than me talking about how improved the Reds are makes me feel really good going into this season.
Yeah, look, that piece that we put out, the clip from the show the other day, Jacob, and I didn't even look at it that way, but you're right. I mean, you look across the board, this team is better across the board than as we sit here at the end of January. You look at January of 23 or of 24, and we're sitting here January of 25. Last year, we were just itching and couldn't wait to get to the baseball season. We can't wait for baseball, don't get me wrong, but we're not as excited. There still seems like there's some doubt just because the front office just hasn't done as much as we thought. But then Buster Olney is talking about all the moves that the Reds have made in the offseason, and they're super high on those moves. Look, baseball's tough to figure out just how many of these moves actually work, and some of the things that could improve this team may not be any of the new additions. It could just be the general progression of some of these young players, as mentioned earlier. I don't know. Bottom line is last year we were super high on this team, and we got let down. It would be kind of cool to have a different, kind of thing play out where we're kind of low on this team, and then they just shock us all. We just have to sit here and wait. But it's January, 24th, 25th, 24th. We still have a long way between now and opening day, unfortunately, but it's going to take a lot to get everyone to really, truly get super excited. And Terry Francona, I trust. I'll just keep saying that over and over and over.
That's right. That's the biggest takeaway, and that's the biggest change. We can talk about all the players and all the other stuff we want to add or anything else, but, I mean, all these people blamed a lot of last season on David Bell, so now you got a Hall of Fame manager in there. Maybe that's 10 wins right there. So I'm going to choose to definitely believe in that too.
That's kind of funny you bring that up because I was thinking about this, just yesterday, coming back from Cincinnati. I'm like, so many people were just adamant that David Bell's the problem. He is the problem. Get him out of here. Well, the Reds get rid of him. And not only do they get rid of him, they bring in arguably the best manager in baseball. And what? That means nothing to people?
Yeah.
Well, if you were so angry about David Bell being the manager of this team, that anger had to be tied into this idea that David Bell is costing this team so many wins. Well, if you move on from David Bell and you bring in the caliber of manager that Terry Francona is, that automatic improvement right there should at least be enough for fans to feel positive about this team heading in. You would think David Bell's still the manager of this team right now with the vibes that are kind of flowing through Reds country at this point. So I don't know. Fans crack me up with that. We make such a big deal about moving on from David Bell. The Reds do that, and we act as if this team is in the same exact spot they were a year ago. I don't think that's the case. So I'm curious to see at what point does the tone change with the fans, and it may not be until into April till we get a month of sample size of games to see how much better this team is. I don't know. Also, an outfielder might help.
One of those outfielders that we were talking about got swooped up yesterday. Jurickson Profar signed with the Braves for a 3-year, $42 million deal. That's $14 million a year. That's definitely within a price range or a conversation that we'd be having with the Reds. So continue to watch some of those guys that we've linked with the Reds just fall through their fingers.
All right, off the bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. Thought that was just an interesting note. Buster Olney, again, the Reds at the top of his most improved list. Nonetheless, we'll have a lot more Reds talk, in the coming weeks and months and all that fun stuff. Opening day, not that too far off in the distance, and spring training, not too far off in the distance as well. More off the bench, buy or sell when we come back. Justin Kenner, Jacob Tissett with you here. We got Reed hanging out in the producer chair. Elliot's out today. He'll be back next week. Casey off today. He'll be back next week as well. Appreciate Reed stepping in and filling in, whether it's producer, co-host, leading the show, whatever we need from him. He's always right there. Trace jumped back in the old host chair yesterday as well when we were at Great American Ballpark for the affiliate day, for the media luncheon, for the Reds. But we appreciate everyone. I do think it's cool, the team of people that Chatterbox has, that we're able to have so many people that could fill in and do a bunch of cool things either way. But we're off and rolling. Appreciate everyone tuning in, hanging out. Hit the like button down at the bottom. Helps, with the algorithm, helps grow the show, helps push it out. So do that, please. We appreciate that. Buy or sell. Let's jump into the buy or sell portion of the show. Let's talk a little NFL. The Titans, owner and president just came out recently and said that they were going to take a generational talent with their pick, that they were not going to let they were not going to not take a generational talent with their number 1 overall pick in the draft coming up. Buy or sell the Titans taking a quarterback with their number 1 pick in the NFL draft when their time is called?
I'm buying it. I'm never, ever, ever going to believe a coach or a front office or anyone when they say that if they need a quarterback, that they're not going to take a quarterback. We've seen time and time again players or teams reach on quarterbacks early in the draft. I think there's a couple generational talents in this draft. None of them play quarterback, so you'd have to be going outside of that position. I think it's going to be Cam Ward at 1. I'd be pretty shocked at this point if it's anyone else, but if I were the Titans, I would certainly take someone like Abdul Carter, or if you love a Will Campbell. I would absolutely get away from the quarterback position if I was picking 1-1 and I'm the Titans with Cam Ward and Shadur Sanders as your 2 quarterback options. Neither of them are worth that spot, but I'm buying the Titans taking a quarterback at first, and I'm buying the generational talent piece being a lie.
Here's the thing about drafting a quarterback. When you're a young head coach, you get one shot. You truly only get one shot. So if you push the buck down the road, then you can give yourself another shot. So if you're not convinced, if you're Brian Callahan and you're not convinced that one of these guys are it, you just push the buck down the road. Because if you just draft somebody else and you go, all right, we're going to give ourselves another year to kind of sort this thing out, kind of build a better roster, then when you finally get a shot to get somebody who you think will be generational, that's when you go. So I think that they will. I'm buying that they take a quarterback with the first overall pick. I'm selling that it's the right call, if that makes sense.
100% agree.
Yeah, it's just that when he mentioned the word generational talent, I don't think Shedeur is that. I don't think Cam Ward is that. And they haven't been billed as that. And by the way, we could bill them as that. It doesn't mean that they're going to be. Trevor Lawrence was – we were told for years. after Trevor Lawrence as a true freshman won a national championship, we were told, man, if he could come out right now, kind of like what we do with Jeremiah Smith, by the way, with, I know it's a different position, wide receiver, but if you go back to Trevor Lawrence's freshman season at Clemson, he doesn't start at the beginning. Kelly Bryant does. And after a couple games of the season, they hand the reins over to Trevor Lawrence and leads him to a national championship as a freshman. Everyone said if he comes out of the draft, if he was able to declare for the draft right now at 18, 19 years old, he would be the number 1 overall pick. He was supposed to be generational. He's not generational. He has not been generational. He has not been elite by any means, right? So labeling them at this time doesn't mean a whole lot. But this idea, when you do that, is that you have this perception that this is going to be a dynamic talent that is going to help you win football games right away. And Shedeur is not being billed as that. And either is Cam Ward. Travis Hunter is. You're starting to hear more and more about Abdul Carter, and not more and more. We've talked about Abdul Carter, but again, he's really starting to be pushed forward.
He's the best player in this class.
Yes. So if when you hear the word generational or the phrase generational talent, that's why it's kind of intriguing. So buy or sell, the Titans go quarterback with the number 1 overall pick. I think ultimately they're going to, because when ultimately in January, it's easy to say we're going to take Travis Hunter 1 overall or Abdul Carter. When there's 2 quarterbacks sitting right there that are going to be good enough to potentially start right away, and you need a quarterback and your coach's career depends on it, I think they ultimately quarterback. I'm going to buy it. But because they keep saying generational talent, I think right now they're probably leaning towards Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter when it's all said and done.
They're going to watch Cam Ward make one throw across his body in a T-shirt and shorts in the middle of March, and then they're going to bet their entire franchise on him. I hate quarterback talk in the draft. It makes me sick. I'm glad the year that we had one, there was a layup, slam dunk, whatever you want to call it. It makes my life so much easier.
Yeah, because and I'm glad you said, that's why I said earlier, it's easy to say in January that you're going to go generational talent at Travis Hunter or Abdul Carter. But you're right. The second that those quarterbacks start, because there's going to be the combine, yes, but these quarterbacks also go do these individual workouts for these teams. So when they fly out or they fly to them, whatever, when they go watch Cam Ward in a workout or Shedeur Sanders and he wows them with the personality and the flair and everything else, they're not going to pass up on one of those 2. I just can't see it. It happens every year. And to be fair, there could be another quarterback that shoots his way up the board the way we saw Baker do many, many moons ago. Who knows? But
I will say,
right now,
with how desirable generational talent quarterbacks are, maybe if you can talk yourself into either one of these guys being the guy, I think it bumps them up 10, 15 spots in terms of talent. Because you just talked about Trevor in Jacksonville. Well, how'd this offseason go for them without a head coach? The top 2 options on the offensive side of the ball wanted to go be their head coach, to coach Trevor. Ben Johnson was linked to the Jaguars early in the process. Liam Cohen, second best offensive coordinator on the market, ended up taking the job after a lot of back and forth. But Ben Johnson then going to Chicago, who is marked as having one of those generational quarterbacks prospects in Caleb. If you get one of these guys, you become one of the most desirable places in the entire league. So if you can talk yourself into Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders being a top 20, top 15 guy out of the gate, then I think you take the chance.
That's a good.
Well, I was going to say this about the Titans real quick is I think as an organization, I don't believe in either one of these guys. I think they should go get a veteran. Yeah. Maybe go get a guy like I don't know, trade for Aaron Rodgers. Can you imagine that guy on Broadway? A true Nashville Predator.
Oh, jeez.
Nice.
Oh, my. He was looking at houses in Nashville before he moved to New York. Took the Jets quarterback job, so maybe.
Wow.
I'm still locked in on Cleveland for Rodgers.
Yeah. Cleveland they have options at 2. But if they go quarterback, I promise you that quarterback succeeds. Cleveland, I don't know if you guys know this, it's a great place for a quarterback. That's where they thrive. You agree, Jake, right? Didn't we just
I can't financially handle another suspension, so yeah, I'll agree with you.
I bet Elliot changes his tune when he comes back as well. How about that? By the way, we did take a nice little photo yesterday. We went in the batting cages, and we both had the helmets on and the bat in our hands, and he gave me the smirk, and I pretended like I was going to hit him in the face with the bat. Can't wait.
He told me not to tweet those because he has something planned. So he's working on something with those batting cage clips. I don't know what yet, but keep your eye out for it.
I will say I was very impressed with him in the cages. By the way, he made great contact. I mean, it makes his
hit off Reed not look so bad for Reed because he was ripping those suckers in that cage.
Seriously, a lot of people were stepping in, and including me. I was not making good contact. Shocker. Elliot stepped in. I mean, it just sounded different coming off his bat.
Compliment from the pitcher on exit velo.
Did he?
Yeah, the pitcher was saying, "Ah, that's good hit, good exit velo."
Elliot did very well yesterday. I will say that he did very well in those cages.
Yeah,
you guys might not believe this. The viewers of this show, Elliot is pretty athletic. He's pretty athletic. He's small and everything, but he's pretty athletic. And this is where I'm going to take a shot at Jacob. Much more athletic than you, Jacob. I
disagree.
I've seen you play pickleball. I've seen you swing a bat a little bit. It's I'll take Elliot all day in terms of just pure athleticism.
If we do a combine, I'm winning 15 out of 16 events.
Is this happening? A Chatterbox combine?
I think we should do a Chatterbox combine lined up with the NFL combine.
I love this idea. I think
get real heights and weights and verticals and 40s and
then let people draft their best athletes at Chatterbox. I think this is fantastic. I love it.
Okay, if you're talking just traits, if we're talking like 40 times,
we'll bench, we'll do vertical, broad jump.
If we're talking NFL combines, maybe not. But in terms of hand-eye coordination, my boy Elliot, he's got great hand-eye
for sure.
Yeah, but he did kill it yesterday. And by the way, hey, Jacob, it's your turn. Oh, no. Jacob wouldn't do it.
I wouldn't.
He would not step in
the cage. My head. Reed got in my head after the first video. So I will never swing a bat on video again.
Also, someone did ask how come Casey was not in the team picture with Terry Francona. That's on him. That's on his fault.
And he said, I'll take it.
Yes.
So that's when we got the second one, made sure he got in.
Yes, he got in, but nonetheless. ADD, big time. While
we're on the topic of the pictures, Kenner, people were shocked to find out your real height.
I've never hid from the fact that I'm short. I've always called myself short and fat.
Like, we're the same here. Like, I don't think it ever plays on, even when you say short, like, I don't think it plays until there's a picture of everyone standing together.
I think it makes sense now with my temper and how loud I am. It's little man syndrome. Like, it's exactly what it is. Like, that's all I have to scream because when I'm all the way down here, you can't hear me up there. Like, it's as simple as that. But, yeah, someone said, man, Kinner's 5'5", and I'm like, and a half. 5'5" and a half. By the way, you notice anyone under 6 foot, it's always like, oh, I'm 5'5" and a half.
There's decimals. Yeah, you lose the decimals when you get above 6 feet.
Yes. I've never heard anyone say, oh, I'm 6'7" and a half, or I'm 6'5", 6'4" and a quarter. No, it's a solid 6'4", 6'1", 6'2", 6'5". But, I've never heard anyone just outright say, oh, I'm 5'5". Yeah, about 5'5" and a half. Yeah, 5'5", 5'7" and a half. So, is what it is. 5'5". It's not. I'm not tall by any means.
You short guys got to stop lying about your height because I am 6 foot tall on the dot. I will measure up and do it any day of the week. I will show you I'm 6 foot tall. The problem with that is everyone that's 5'10" and 5'11" says they're 6 foot tall. I'm not lying. I'm not saying I'm 6'1", 6'2". I'm not doing that thing. But no one believes me when I tell them. They're like, how tall are you? 6 foot? They're like, oh, so you're like 5'11"? You're like 5'10"? And I'm like, no, I'm 6 foot tall. So you short guys got to stop lying.
Before we get into the next buy or sell, we do have some breaking news. Kenner and I both wearing some Buckeyes garb today. The last day to declare for the draft before that deadline hits. And Quinshon Judkins has declared for the draft. Quinshon, just a one-year rental for the Buckeyes. He had over 1,000 yards this year in his lone season in Columbus. An unbelievable get for the Buckeyes in the portal. #1 player in the portal at the time of his commitment. And I was holding out on some hope that maybe he'd come back, but a 3-touchdown game in the national championship all but put the nail in that coffin. I think Quinshon Judkins is going to be an unbelievable NFL back. Speed and power. He's going to succeed with flying colors at the next level. Wish we got him for more time in Columbus, but the 1 year was a big-time success. So thanks for everything, Quinshon Judkins. Welcome to the NFL.
Reed, I don't know. Something was wrong with your mic. It was like cracking or something. A few minutes. I don't know. I just check on it. That's all. Just make sure.
That's good.
I'm just worried about. What?
Is this a payroll cut?
This
is a payroll cut for you guys.
Well,
with the best roster money
I was
combined.
waiting.
we offered him like 4.5 to come back, and he said no.
But that just means there's $4.5 million now we can go spend elsewhere. So I'm
That's
fine.
right. That's right.
Hopefully, I don't spend. I hope you don't spend it on a running back. You just don't spend it.
He scored 3 touchdowns in the national championship.
I was going to say, national championship. Follow the blueprint, baby.
Lane Kiffin's still mad about that one.
Yeah, no wonder he was a little salty. But yeah. So the combine, by the way, we're going to get everyone's official height. But I always say I'm 5'7". I'm 5'5". There is no doubt about it.
I love the combine idea.
I think the combine idea is great. I think I can't wait. I don't know where we're going to hold this thing, but yeah, we'll there you go. All right, Off the Bench presented by United Dairy Farmers. Let's pretend to be a very serious sports talk show when we reset this thing. So we'll step away. When we come back, more buy or sell. We'll be right back. About whatever. Maybe it's the wrong way.
You're gonna have to reset.
I'm not sure everything's fine.
Correct. So this is where earlier in the show you said, "Hey, I'm glad at Chatterbox everyone does everything." The problem with me doing everything is I'm not sure what I'm good at, so I just do a little bit of everything. So you talked for 20 seconds there. They heard 3 of the 20 seconds. So if you just want to run that back one more time.
To be fair, that was probably the most liked I've been on this show over that 17 seconds of silence.
It is funny to see who in the chat says that your mic is muted and who doesn't, because it takes a while for us to find out that your mic's muted because they're not quick to let us know.
Let's just do sports, huh?
Let's
just talk sports. Yeah. Off the rails here on a Friday. Here we go. Okay, so we did the buy or sell. Titans taking the QB with the number 1 overall pick already. Obviously, their president and owner came out and said that they're not going to let a generational talent slip through their hands with the number 1 overall pick. Say that in January. Ultimately, it's a team that needs a quarterback. We all think that they go quarterback. But buy or sell, we just talked a little Ohio State. We asked this to Jason Fitz earlier in the week. Buy or sell Will Howard being an NFL quarterback? Buy or sell?
I'm going to buy it. I think Will Howard is an NFL quarterback. I don't think he's a first-round pick. I don't think he deserves to be in the 1-1 conversation with Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders. But I think Will Howard's an NFL quarterback. He has the big body. He showed you that he can hit the deep ball. He had his best stretch of games against the best stretch of defenses he played all year. I think Will Howard absolutely proved that he's an NFL quarterback. I'm buying that for sure. I think he'll probably be right around that top 50 range or close to it. I think he'll be a top 5 quarterback in this class for sure, and I think that is almost strictly because of the playoff run. He proved that he can play against top end players, and I mean, how many of those players on Tennessee, Oregon, Texas, and Notre Dame's defense are going to be picked in this draft as well? So if he was able to tear them up, then yeah, absolutely, I would take a flyer on Will Howard and draft him in the NFL. I think he's an NFL quarterback for sure.
If you're asking me, do I think Will Howard will be a quarterback in the NFL? And that's the question. The answer is yeah, he's clearly going to get drafted. We've seen teams do this pretty much in perpetuity, where you take a guy that's won a lot of games in college and you go, all right, this guy's a winner, right? He's a national champion quarterback. And you put him on your roster and he'll sit behind some guy. No, I don't think he's a starter. I'll say this, if you're a team and you're considering making Will Howard a starter, right? You're considering making him, maybe not a first-round pick, but a second or third-round pick, and you're going to give him a chance to start on your team. I wouldn't take Will Howard because he, to me, feels like a diet right version of Kyle McCord. So I would go and take Kyle McCord over Will Howard because everything I've seen in college, Kyle McCord just seems to be a much better quarterback than Will Howard. So, yes, he will be a quarterback in the National Football League. No, he will not be a starter.
Yeah, I mean, look, is he an NFL quarterback? I think that he played his way into that conversation, like for a lot of the reasons Jacob said. I wasn't a big Will Howard guy throughout the season. I thought he was a very fine quarterback coming in. I think right now at the end of the day, though, it's one of those where he went from just completing passes to wide open Emeka Egbuka, wide open Jeremiah Smith throughout the regular season, not doing anything super flashy, not that they needed him to. And then all of a sudden, after that horrific game against Michigan, he's squeezing the ball into tight windows against Tennessee in their secondary. He made some throws against Oregon that were just unbelievable. And then you look at the Texas game, I can't tell you how many times me and my buddies watching the game, we were like wincing every time he would throw the ball because he would throw it into a pocket where there's three defensive backs, three defenders all around the wide receiver. I'm like, how did he find that spot, that perfect spot to get it to where only the receiver can get it and the defenders couldn't? Those were NFL style, pro throws. So I think he can make it in the NFL, but are we saying, Patrick Mahomes against Will Howard at AFC Championship game? Probably not, but maybe. Who knows? But I'm not putting a lot of stock into him being an elite NFL quarterback, but good enough to get there. I think he played himself into that conversation.
And partially to go along with what Reed was saying, I think a lot of his success is a benefit of the 3 first-round, 4 first-round, 5 first-round wide receivers on that roster. So though he did show that he can make some of those tight window throws, how many of those throws were really great and more so just great plays by the wide receivers? I'm not entirely sure, but I think I definitely saw enough from him to take him with some level of confidence that he can be a viable piece of an NFL locker room.
All right, let's continue on the quarterback conversation. Patrick Mahomes has a chance to three-peat. Obviously, you have to get through Josh Allen and the Bills this coming up weekend. But buy or sell, winning a third straight Super Bowl would cement Patrick Mahomes as the greatest of all time. Buy or sell?
Sell it for everything it's worth. You can't lose to the other GOAT when he's 45 on his second stop and then act like you're the GOAT. So I think Mahomes is in a really, really tough spot because if Michael Jordan and the Wizards would have beaten prime LeBron, I probably wouldn't be arguing for LeBron very often. So I think the fact that we saw both, Tom Brady in New England go to Kansas City, knock off the Chiefs, and then Tom Brady on the Bucs dismantle the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. It wasn't even close. So, yeah, I think Mahomes has a long, long way to go until he's the GOAT, at least without any kind of debate, which is what the question was.
This is not going to be popular. Here's the thing about Patrick Mahomes. If he does it, he'd be the first quarterback ever to three-peat. This is the first team that would ever do that. He's only 7 years into his career, and we'd be talking about 4 championships in his first 7 years. On top of that, and once again, this is going to be unpopular because everyone hates him, and I get why everyone hates him. He's done every kind of quarterback that you need to be. He's done the 5,000 yards, 55 touchdowns, and then he's done the game manager thing that just dumps it out in important times of the game. He's done both. We haven't seen any quarterback ever. We've never seen a quarterback do the Aaron Rodgers and the Tom Brady. We've never seen that before. So if you win your 4th championship, you're the first quarterback to three-peat. You do it while consistently losing elite talent like Tyreek Hill and Kareem Hunt. And the only quarterback that you really ever lost to in the postseason is Tom Brady, and a much more experienced Tom Brady, and a lightning hot, red hot Joe Burrow, who I think is going to go down as one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time as well. He's certainly projecting there. I don't know if it cements it, but it's certainly projecting there.
It absolutely helps. Absolutely helps if he gets his 3rd in a row. I can't get over the going into Kansas City as a 40-year-old and then beating him, especially if things aren't even in Super Bowl still at this point.
It was his rookie year,
That was
right?
his
That's
first
Patrick.
year.
Yeah, it was his first
year
year.
as a starter. First year as a
Right.
starter.
Right. So
But
I
he
don't
did
know.
lose to Tom Brady in the Super Bowl, though.
Dismantled. Dismantled.
But
Missing 3 starters on the offensive line.
yes, and that
Yeah,
defense
so
was
not,
on
not
the
all
top rank.
quarterbacks can succeed with a banged up offensive line.
So here's the deal. Like Patrick Mahomes, if you have him on your team, you are guaranteed to be a game away from the Super Bowl every single season. And I think when you have that conversation, and you talked about this with LeBron's dynamic run from, and by the way, I don't want to be like First Take where we're comparing Patrick and LeBron because that's what they did the other day, but here we are. But like we've seen dominance where, if you had a player to your team and that player automatically either puts you in the finals or puts you a game or a series away from a finals or a Super Bowl, that's just pure dominance. And Patrick Mahomes, and that's a good point by Reed. There's certain quarterbacks that play the same way every single time. I think that's what makes Josh Allen so interesting this year is the fact that he dialed it back this year. He stopped with the turnovers. He hasn't been as dynamic as in years past without those playmakers, but he became way more efficient. Patrick Mahomes could win whether he has all the talent around him or whether he has no defense, no offensive line. We've seen it all. The last 2 years is the only 2 years that he's played with these top-ranked defenses. It's not like the Chiefs has been this dominant, full-functioning teams from the time that he got there. Seeing him win with all different moving pieces around him, I think, to me, does cement him in that conversation. But if you three-peat, do something no quarterback has ever done, yeah, I'd say that would cement him as the GOAT. Buy or sell, again, Patrick Mahomes being the GOAT if he three-peats here. Some people already put him in that spot to begin with. I think a three-peat, though, that's pretty insane. And we'll see if they're able to do it. But either way. Moving on, buy or sell. Let's move over to baseball. Reed, I'll throw this one to you. Buy or sell, Baseball Hall of Fame ballots should be made public. Buy or sell?
Okay, so I'm glad you asked this because I love the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame. I'm gonna give you another point. Yes, I'm buying. Yes, they should absolutely be public. The problem with it right now is it is up to your free will whether you want to release it or not. And the problem with that is people release it before the vote comes out. There's no other vote ever that is like that. MVP, All-Pro, all this stuff that we have writers vote on, Heisman voting, you have to wait till the vote comes out. Then you can go, all right, this is how I voted. So the reason I disagree with being able to release it early is because, quite honestly, you can persuade other voters. And that's probably the reason that Ichiro Suzuki wasn't a unanimous voter this year. Someone said, oh, he's already in. I'm going to use my vote on somebody else because I've got 10 people that I want to vote for, and you're only allowed voting for 10 people, which I think is also silly. And the final point I'll say is, I've said this on the show earlier this week, I could care less that Ichiro Suzuki wasn't unanimous. It's not like there's some standard that a unanimous vote holds you in higher esteem in the Hall of Fame because it's only ever happened once. It's not, Babe Ruth, Walter Johnson, Ted Williams, Willie Mays, none of them were unanimous. So why should Ichiro Suzuki be unanimous? So it doesn't bother me at all because it's really never happened. It is objectively funny that the only unanimous guy was a closing pitcher, though. It'd be like the only unanimous guy in the NFL Hall of Fame being a punter or a kicker.
Like Adam Vinatieri.
Right, it'd be Adam Vinatieri, who's the only unanimous voter to ever be enshrined in Canton. So, in short, yes, I'm buying that it should be released publicly. I don't think there's some big problem with the Hall of Fame voting, as a lot of people insinuate, but it should be released publicly.
Yeah, I agree with Reed for sure that it doesn't need to be released beforehand. I think that can definitely sway voters, and it definitely doesn't make much sense in that regard. But afterwards, you should have to stand by who you vote for. I stick with that with most awards, all awards, really. I think you should have to stand by who you vote for, and people should be able to ask you why you voted a certain way, why you left someone off, why you did what you did, and you should have to defend that. If you have the ability to determine who wins awards, who gets into a Hall of Fame, you should have enough statistics or opinions or whatever it is to back that up that you can, stand on that. So I absolutely think it should be public afterwards, and I think it should be a pretty open discussion about why you did what you did, and people should be asked to defend their decisions and stuff that changes people's lives.
So, yes, and by the way, I'm buying this. I do believe that it should be made public, but I do believe that this is a weird debate because it's a debate that shouldn't have to be made, mainly because of the fact that we're only talking about this because we feel there's some pettiness going on with how some of these votes take place. And I think that that's the biggest problem I have. Barry Bonds is not in the Hall of Fame because of steroids in my opinion. He's not in the Hall of Fame because he didn't kiss the ring of a lot of the media and the voters throughout his career. I've you hear people talk about this all the time about how Barry Bonds was not the most cordial with reporters and with voters and with people throughout his career, and he was kind of unlikable. And because of that, no one was going to do him any favors, and people have made it a point that, hey, we're going to make sure that he does not get into the Hall of Fame because of that. And I think when there's pettiness involved in this process, I do believe your name should be stamped next to it, publicly for everybody to see, because I don't think a lot of these votes are made with the intent of basing it off of true baseball stats and just career-based merit. And that's the problem I have. The fact that these voters are petty, and the fact that they don't do it strictly off of obviously the skill set and the careers and the resumes of these guys, that's the problem I have. So yes, I buy it. I do believe that the votes and the decisions should be made public for that very reason, because if you're going to be that guy, I just can't think of a reason why you're the one guy that decided you don't want to put Ichiro Suzuki and as unanimous. That's just wild to me.
I'll say this. You bring up a really good point. Pettiness is, if there is a problem with Hall of Fame voting, it is absolutely pettiness. Everyone wants to point out Barry Bonds, Roger Clemens, Sammy Sosa, all these guys that didn't get in, Manny Ramirez that didn't get in because they took steroids or got caught taking steroids. In the history of the National Baseball Hall of Fame, the worst guy to not get into the Hall of Fame, like the most egregious, is Curt Schilling. And no one knows my politics, but the only reason that Curt Schilling isn't in the Hall of Fame is because of his politics, because he's really loud on Twitter. And he said, I'm going to be honest here, he says crazy stuff on social media, but it shouldn't get you out of the Hall of Fame because it has nothing to do with your playing career. The only reason Curt Schilling isn't in the Hall of Fame is quite literally because the voters don't like him, because he's very loud and very obnoxious, and that's it. And it's an absolute travesty that Curt Schilling isn't in the Hall of Fame. So I'm getting off my soapbox right there.
No, yeah, that fits that's the exact example to the pettiness argument that I made earlier. Like, it's about what you do on the field, and the Barry Bonds thing, if you truly felt he cheated the game, we're not going to change your mind on that. That's fine. But you're right. That's probably the best example right there of someone that's not in, that has nothing to do with anything other than, you just don't like his personality and don't like his politics and this, that, and the other. That should have no role in this when it's all said and done. I did find this kind of funny, though. Ichiro Suzuki, when he was interviewed recently through his interpreter, says he wants to raise a glass with the voter who chose not to check off his name on the Hall of Fame ballot. He says, there's one writer that I wasn't able to get a vote from, he said through his interpreter. Again, this is just days after receiving 393 of 394 votes from the Baseball Writers Association of America. Suzuki says, I would like to invite him over to my house and we'll have a drink together and we'll have a good chat. I would like to know what that chat would be like, by the way. As simple as this. Why? I think we all want to know the same thing. Just why, when it's all said and done. All right. Off the Bench presented by United Dairy Farmers, Chatterbox Sports on YouTube, ESPN 1410, Wing AM in Dayton. So last one here when it comes to the buy or sell, it involves the Cincinnati Reds. As we sit here right now, a name kind of popped up the other day that I thought was kind of interesting. Graham Ashcraft. There are reports right now. Derek Johnson says that he's really pulling and supporting Graham Ashcraft to compete for the rotation, the starting rotation for the Cincinnati Reds. Buy or sell the idea of Graham Ashcraft cracking the rotation for the Reds this season?
I'm going to sell it. I just can't see them paying Nick Martinez to be a reliever with that much money. And maybe they will, and I would applaud them if they did so. But I think to start the year, the rotation is going to be Hunter Green, Nick Lodolo, Brady Singer, Abbott, and Martinez. And that just leaves Ashcraft as the odd man out. And that's even including leaving a guy like Rhett Lauder down in AAA to start the year. So I don't even think Ashcraft is next into that rotation if they were to bump Martinez out. So I'm going to sell this. I hope that he can be a really crucial piece to this bullpen and a good multi-inning arm. Emilio Pagan yesterday at the media day talked about how important it would be for a guy like Ashcraft switching roles like that to have Nick Martinez on his team, the best kind of split roles pitcher in MLB to teach you how to go through that transition. I think that could be great for Ashcraft to maybe revitalize his career in a new role in Cincinnati. I just don't think he's going to be a starter. I can't really find a way to fit him in this, obviously, until injuries occur. When injuries happen, I'm sure we'll see Ashcraft start a couple games, but off the rip to start the year on opening day, I don't expect Graham Ashcraft to be in the opening rotation.
Graham Ashcraft absolutely will start a game at some point this season,
Right,
like
right.
Jacob said. But no, I'm selling. He's not going to be a part of the opening day rotation. And if he is, it's because there's injuries there.
Yep.
But no, just on pure merit and talent alone, no, he's not going to make the starting rotation come opening day.
Yeah, if Graham Ashcraft is ever announced as a starter at any point, that means horrendous things are happening with the Reds organization. We're still, without Graham Ashcraft even being in the conversation, I'm still wondering what this rotation is going to look like. They have not tough, they just have, these are good problems to have, by the way.
Yeah.
Will Rhett Lauder be in the rotation after spring training? That's what I want to know. Rhett Lauder was lights out in September. There's a chance he's not in the rotation when we start things. There's a lot. Nick Martinez, is he in the rotation or is he in the bullpen? Like we've talked about that already before. But the bottom line is Graham Ashcraft. So again, Derek Johnson sees Graham Ashcraft competing for a spot in the Reds rotation in spring training. To me, I'm selling this. I do not see him being in the rotation unless it's like what you guys and Reed said. Injuries have happened or something catastrophic has happened. But, I mean, again, you have Hunter Green, you have Nick Lodolo, Andrew Abbott, Brady Singer, Nick Martinez. And, there's just – if something happens to one of those two or one of those five or six, that means that he's next. That means something catastrophic has happened. So I'm going to sell it. I don't think there's a true opportunity for him to compete for a spot in the rotation. I think he would just have to be pushed into the rotation, for an a horrible circumstance when it's all said and done. So I'm out on that. I don't want to see him in the rotation. I want to see him return to his old form, but I would like to see that in the bullpen when it's all said and done.
100% agree, and I think that's something we've kind of circled with him for a little bit now, when we've seen how the Reds have handled the draft and handled free agency and everything like that. Maybe a move to the bullpen has been something we've expected for Ashcraft for a little bit now. I hope it works because we always talk about him, as the bulldog on here. Maybe he doesn't have the best stuff, but he always goes out there and gives it his all, and that's a good guy to have on the squad, especially in the bullpen.
All right, Off the Bench presented by United Dairy Farmers. We wrap up the radio portion of this on the other side. We'll be right back. This Chatterbox combine is going to happen, right?
It has to. It has to.
Like, is it going to be like all the NFL workouts? Like what are stuff like? I'm a big fan of this idea.
Or is it a
Elliott,
Chatterbox combine? You have to produce a show, make a TikTok, give a bad take. You got to do all the stuff we do on a day.
I like how you threw in give a bad take there because we do specialize in those. That'd be both are fun. Both are fun.
Hybrid?
I will say this. I'm really intrigued to see 40 times.
I know. Me too.
Although I'm one of the stockier guys in the room, I think I got a shot to be the quickest guy in the room. I'm not fast by any stretch of the imagination either.
I definitely don't have a shot to be the fastest. I just can't be last. And I think I'll be a solid 5'3".
Trace looks like a runner. Is Trace a runner?
Trace will run like a 4'8".
He's not fast. He's not
really?
fast. Yeah, Trace isn't fast.
Long and lanky.
Yeah, I mean, he still might be faster than us. The vertical is what I'm interested. We used to, in college.
Oh, I got that.
In college, we used to have to do a vertical, And there was this guy named James Doring who was, he's a big guy. He's a big guy, like 270. And I remember we did standing verts one day, and he beat me in standing vert. And, like, I couldn't show my face around the locker room for, like, 3 days because I had, like, the worst vert on the team. No hops. No hops over here.
Yeah, no, I've always wished I could dunk. If I could do anything in any sport, it'd be dunking. But, nah, no chance.
My scurry. We don't jump. We scurry.
Okay.
Yeah.
There you go. Jeez.
I was happy if I could just touch the net. Like, if I could just graze the net. You know,
When'd you hit that? Like sophomore year of college?
I mean, I was 5'5" and a half, in 5th grade.
Wait,
The coaches were always nice. Yeah, they were always nice to me in elementary school. They still kept in touch in middle school my freshman year. They're like, oh, you're here? They tried telling me tryouts for yesterday. They were hoping I was going to show up today. Yeah, but no, my coach on the roster always listed me as 5'9", and I would one day just said, hey, why do you guys have me listed as 5'9"? He goes, I can't give you playing time, so I might as well give you a couple inches on the roster. So thanks for that.
That was good. That's good.
Yeah. Yep. So low self-esteem, issues. I wonder where that came from, growing up, 5'5" and a half. You said you had something, Ohio State, people wanting Ohio State's players. Shocker.
Yeah, it's looking like $20 million is a bargain for the roster Ohio State just had. Jeremiah Smith coming in at $5 million, $4.5 to $5 million offers on the table in order for him to transfer out of Columbus for the next 2 years. And Carnell Tate, Ohio State's wide receiver 3 this year, with multiple offers over $1 million to enter the portal. One of those offers is from Oregon, so a conference opponent, one of the other top teams in the country, trying to get Carnell Tate on their squad. And Ohio State has a lot more to worry about as well, with their defensive coordinator being linked to all 3 of Penn State, Notre Dame, and Oklahoma's defensive coordinator openings. So I know they just won a national championship, but in the modern era of college football, there is no time to celebrate. You got to re-recruit the guys on your roster, go recruit the guys in the transfer portal that you just lost a month of recruiting, and then you got to re-recruit your coaches to stay on staff, because Chip Kelly also linked to Liam Cohen's staff potentially in Jacksonville. So the Buckeyes could be getting pillaged from top to bottom, coaching staff and roster, after a national championship season. Hopefully all the haters like Reed are right, and there's just $1 billion up there in Columbus that we can just funnel into this team.
The Jim Knowles thing surprises me a bit.
I don't know why you'd leave for another DC role.
I agree with you. I agree with that 100%. I also our teams this, every team that wins a national championship in college football is usually pretty good defensively. I can't think of the last team that won a national championship that wasn't good defensively. Every national championship winner, we just got it. We have to have their defensive coordinator. How about you just get their players? I'm not low on Jim Knowles. I'm just not super high either, because a national championship winning a race is a lot. But the defense was a big question mark for years, and he's not always going to have a roster full of, 35-year-olds moving forward, when it's all said and done. I think he's a very good defensive coordinator, don't get me wrong, but to put him in this upper echelon of teams lining up to take him, that's just wild. I'm not saying Ohio State would be screwed if he left, but again, you want some kind of consistency with your staff. It would not be a good thing if he left from that standpoint, but I'm just surprised that there's this many people lining up for Jim Knowles' services, I guess.
Not to start another argument, but I've been saying Al Golden's the best DC in college football for the last 48 hours, and that's only because the Bengals hired him. I think Jim Knowles is pretty distantly the best defensive coordinator in college football. Just what he was able to do at Oklahoma State before coming to Ohio State is really what I hold on to even more, because I don't know how much of an Ohio State top 10 defense is a product of those 5 stars and the guys that came back and everything like that. But the fact that he had Oklahoma State an inch away from a playoff. They were in a Big 12 championship diving for the pylon, and that they were only that good that year because of that defense. So I think Jim Knowles is a pretty dang good college coach, and I'm honestly surprised the job offers for him stop at defensive coordinator. I expected him to get some kind of head coaching talks throughout this offseason, but obviously that's not the case. It's just big money for defensive coordinator. Penn State allegedly prepared to make him the highest paid coordinator either side of the ball in college football, which would certainly be a tough pill for Ohio State to swallow in terms of trying to keep him around. But even bigger than that, I think Chip Kelly was always a 1 or 2 year rental as an offensive play caller, but him going to Jacksonville would be a pretty big hit for what Ohio State was able to do, especially down the stretch this season.
So real quick about Jim Knowles, that's the thing too. If he leaves because Ohio State wasn't like if Penn State wants to make him the highest paid DC,
Yeah.
and Ohio State money is not an issue in any little tiny form. So if they ever lose a coordinator or a coach because someone else was willing to outspend them for him, to me that says Ohio State's like, well, we like Jim Knowles, but we're not going to make him the highest. They should, and they should make him the highest paid DC in college football. But if they lose him because of that, that to me says Ryan Day and the staff, like, hey, we like you, Jim Knowles. We appreciate everything you did, but we don't value you as high as what Penn State does, obviously. Not saying you're wrong, because, again,
I also think you have to have a conversation. If you're going to pay a DC $5 million, is it better to get $5 million starters? I mean, could an average DC with $5 million starters be better than a $5 million DC? I don't know. I think that's questions you have to ask in the modern college football.
All right, well, that does it for us on the radio side. We got to talk AFC, NFC championship game,
One last thing before we get off radio, just want to get it in here before we lose those fine people. Jets fans seem to think that Trey Brown is going to be their next GM. Trey Brown currently in the Bengals front office. And the only reason that would be a big deal for us, obviously losing a guy who's been in a key piece of our personnel department for many, many years is a big loss. But the Bengals would get a third-round pick both this year and next year as a comp pick for Trey Brown getting hired. So 2 third-round picks for just simply having a guy be really good at his job. So something to follow throughout the day as the Jets are trying to finalize their GM role. If it is Trey Brown, that would be a big win for the Bengals.
Question. Key piece in personnel department, like, isn't that a problem?
Like 4 personnel guys. So if he's the one that does everything, then yeah, it's.
But isn't that? But like, is he very good at his job? I mean, obviously the Jets want him, but like, isn't that all we talk about? Is how it's Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, Trey Hendrickson, and T, and literally everybody else? Like, right? Like, is that a big loss?
I think so.
Hey, if you get third-round picks for him, fine. Like,
well,
great.
Yeah,
great.
he's with when you don't have anyone in a personnel department and you lose the guy that's been the head of it for a while, and you're gonna have to. Maybe this is a kick in the behind to revamp that side of things. So maybe an even bigger positive for Bengals fans.
All right, so good stuff. Until next week on the radio side, this has been Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. Thank you, Everett. That's great advice, actually. We just need like a Zoom feature. You know how you can raise your hand in the Zoom or the Google Chat?
Yeah, the emoji pops up. Yeah.
Dude, that was a close one. By the way, Jennifer Aniston and Barack Obama. What do you guys think about that?
Yeah, round of applause for Barry O.
I mean, all I could do is use the, I just think of the show fun. I mean, wild stuff happening in the old political world. Anyways, Reed, anything on politics? What you got?
Not much. You know what's interesting about that? I don't know if any of you guys have watched that Apple TV show, The Morning Show. Anyone
No.
That she's in. Yep.
She's in that, and in that show, she dates the version of Elon Musk, I guess.
Okay.
Like it's a parody of Elon Musk. So it's kind of interesting right there. We do have a super chat that we didn't get to earlier in the show. It is from Molly. Happy birthday, Molly. She gave a $10 super chat, said, F the Cubs. Mean. How mean?
How much did she spend on that?
$10.
Wow.
That's awesome. That's a
F
good
the Cubs.
That rocks.
I think she hates the Cubs almost as much as I hate the Steelers and Buckeyes. I want to say something about the Buckeyes hate.
Do it.
I don't care that much. It's just a lot of fun to troll. Like it's like them winning the national championship on Monday didn't break me or anything like that. Like it doesn't. Like if the Steelers won a Super Bowl, I would actually be broken inside. The Ohio State thing is just a lot of fun.
Reed found out pretty quickly at the start of this college football season that the Ohio State bit gets to me more than almost any other bit. And he ran with it pretty hard for the first couple weeks. And then I found out how little college football he actually watches, and it made me feel so much better.
It's literally not a bit. Like, by the way, did you see that the national championship was like the lowest?
Yeah, it was like
rated,
12% lower than last year.
It's like the lowest national championship in like 15 years or something like that.
Yeah, but Reed, it was 22 million Buckeye.
crazy.
It was 22 million Buckeye fans though watching.
That is true. Yeah, no, you can't play a national championship. You can't play a college football game with 4 NFL teams left. That's absolutely ridiculous scheduling. You just can't play it that late.
There was a lot going on that day. Big
I was
day.
going to say, I think it was
a big day.
I was going to say, I think if anything, it was the fact that people were glued to their TVs through most of the day for the inauguration.
I think where it is in the calendar is going to affect that too. I do think without the inauguration it would have been higher, but I think it is way too late to really thrive. Maybe this dip in viewership finally gets them to push it off Monday. When we think about that, maybe this is a win for everyone, and you play this on Saturday like every other college football game of the entire year.
See, I don't mind it on Mondays. I know that's weird. I get mad at the.
I don't mind
We've had
it
this
at
debate
all.
before.
I
It's the
hate
start
it on
time.
Monday.
7:30 wasn't a bad start time, but of course it starts like this show does. It was a 7:30 kickoff that I think didn't kick off till 7:50 or something crazy. But I mean, but yeah, I do think I think if you get back-to-back numbers like that, then it's a problem. I think the ceiling for college football at this point is about 30 mil.
Which is weird to me with
yeah.
how high the ceiling is for really every other sport. I don't understand that.
The Super Bowl's through the roof. I mean, by the way, I will say this. If you're going to promote a halftime show, how about you don't pre-record a guy standing on a roof looking like he's about to jump off?
Yeah, that's
and then
crazy.
piss everybody off that way. That was something. I don't know why more people haven't complained about that. I was expecting like an actual like halftime show like you get at the Super Bowl, and it was just him standing up on the stadium trying not to jump off and just kind of swaying back and forth. It was horrible. It was horrible.
I think one thing that we forget when it comes to college football, because you guys were just talking about how it peaked, is that there is a densely populated portion of the country that doesn't give a rip. Like Northeast from New York on up, no one gives a rip about college football.
Right.
And it's something. I will also say this about college football. I like Mondays because I'm not doing anything when I watch the games. Like, as a guy who doesn't really care for college football, part of the reason I don't watch it on Saturdays is because I'm doing stuff. Like, I'm either working on my house, I'm working, I'm doing something with my wife's family. Like, there's other things to do on a Saturday. If I'm sitting at home on a Monday, what else am I going to be doing? I'll just sit down and watch that game. So that's part of the reason I like Monday nights. And without a doubt, the reason they started playing on Monday nights is to steal the Monday Night Football crowd, right? Like, that is 100% the reason that they play these games on Monday night, is they just, like, Americans are used to watching
NFL games on the Saturday.
I get it, but the reason, like, they could have picked those games on that Saturday, and I think that they would move away. I think that the reason they picked these Monday nights for the national championship, they do it when the Monday Night Football ends. It's the first week that we don't have Monday Night Football is when they play the national championship. No?
Do we have Monday Night Football 2 weeks ago in the playoffs? Yeah, in the division.
wild card
but
round, yeah.
It was always before that, until the 12-team play. Until this year, it was always before that.
One of the reasons, too, by the way, that I've heard that they do it on Mondays is to take advantage of the sports talk cycle throughout the day. So you have your
preview.
Fox, your Fox, ESPN radios, your
That makes
TV.
sense.
They have so many of those networks go do their live shows from they take advantage of the build-up cycle for that day. And that's one thing that I've heard. The Super Bowl owns all of Sunday. A national championship wouldn't own all of Saturday. I mean, it could. I just don't think it would or does. I don't know. But that's the only real good reason I've heard about why it's Monday night is to take advantage of the sports talk cycle throughout the day. You don't get that on the weekend.
I think if it was on Saturday, their ratings would drop, I think, a pretty decent portion. Because, like I said, on Monday night, what else are you doing other than sitting at home watching TV?
Oh no, you're good, Jake. My bad. I was
you're
going to
good.
bring
Go ahead.
AFC NFC Championship game this weekend. I know you and Trice talked about it yesterday. How are we feeling about Josh Allen, Josh Allen, and obviously Patrick Mahomes going head to head. Then you have the Commanders and the Eagles. The Bills and Chiefs is the game I'm most excited about. But I know what people keep doing with the Commanders, it's driving me nuts when we do this every year. It's who's facing most pressure, who's playing with house money. Commanders keep getting thrown into this boat of, this is a great, they're just happy to be here. There's no pressure on them at all. I'd argue there's a lot of pressure that they need to take care of, but you are right there. You have this opportunity. Everyone acts like it's so easy to get to this point once you have that quarterback thing figured out. That gives you the best chance. But with you guys, the Bengals get to a Super Bowl, back-to-back AFC Championship games. That was supposed to be like, hey, the sky's the limit. We're going to keep going. It's 2 years out of the playoffs, right? C.J. Stroud last year, the way we're talking about Jaden Daniels right now. Man, if Houston was that good without, all the money being put in the roster, we're going to go get Stephon Diggs. We're going to go and we're going to add, weapons on the D-line. They regressed this year. You're not promised anything, in my opinion. So I think Washington, everyone's talking about Philadelphia and all of this. That's an organization that has proven that they can consistently get there. I think there's pressure on them, no doubt. But I think Washington, you've made it this far. You're not promised to get back just because Jaden Daniels has had an exciting rookie year. I think that right now, there's a lot more pressure on Washington than people think, just because we've seen so many examples of teams that get to the Super Bowl and think, oh, man, we're going to continue getting there, and they never get back there. I'd say there's a lot of pressure on Washington, more than what we would imagine, especially when you get a historic rookie season from Jaden Daniels the way that they have.
I think you're right, and obviously it wasn't Burrow's rookie year, but we're kind of seeing a similar thing here.
Yeah.
When the Bengals got there, and everyone just kind of unanimously was like, "Oh, well, we'll be back, in the playoffs every year and fighting for the Super Bowl every year." And obviously that hasn't been the case since then. So yeah, I think the Commanders are, it's crazy to say high on this list, but pretty high on this list. Out of all the teams left in the Final Four, I'm least confident in the Commanders ever getting back. So I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if most people are would agree with that or not. But I think is definitely a ton of pressure on the Commanders, more so than maybe the other three teams in terms of another chance to win a Super Bowl.
Pressure, certainly. So there's more pressure on the Bills than anybody. There's no doubt about that. Here's the thing. People always do the "you're playing with house money" cliche, right? Mm-hmm. And that's where the Commanders are. I think if they walked out and they lose on Sunday, everyone's going to be like, man, what a great year. We hadn't been to an NFC Championship game in however many years and everything. Everyone would feel great. But house money, if you want to use that analogy, it's not like you walked in with a couple $100 and you got your money back plus a little bit, and now you're just playing with quote unquote house money. It'd be more like you walk in with $1,000, you're up $50,000, and now you're looking around. You don't play with $49,000. You make sure you leave that casino with 48, 50. You make sure you leave with as much money as possible, because that's how ahead of the game they are. Now there's so much against them, right? There's so much pressure, I guess you want to say, is like, we've gotten this far. We might not get here again. Let's keep it rolling, baby. I don't think they're going to win, but you're absolutely right. They don't have as much pressure as, say, the Bills, but they certainly got more pressure on them than the Chiefs.
So, I mean, we weren't intending to do like pressure rankings, I guess, but I'd say the one thing about the Commanders too, I will say, and even the Bengals run that year when they went to the Super Bowl, the Bengals were the cute little Bengals, right? Like, hey, when they got to the playoffs and they won that first round matchup, it was like anything that happened after that, it doesn't matter because it was a successful season. They got to the Super Bowl. It hurt that they lost, but it was still one of those, like, there was still a parade for them when they got back to Cincinnati because it was a magical season. The expectation wasn't to go and win it. You guys couldn't believe that they got there. But now moving forward, it's like, it's not just good enough to make the playoffs. You're pissed when you miss it. You have to get there and compete and win once you get there. The Commanders are being looked at as, well, for instance, the Eagles aren't looking at the Commanders as a true threat, even though they split with them in the regular season. The Eagles are like, that's the Commanders. It's Jaden Daniels on a cute little run. But next year, every team in the NFL is going to they're going to have the Commanders circled on the schedule as a tough game. Last year, Houston, everyone kept doing this thing with them, like, oh, we're not giving them respect. We're not giving them respect. This year, everyone circled them until they realized, oh, they're not the same team as last year. I think there's pressure on the Commanders there. You said the Bills are at the top, Reed? You think the Bills are at the top of most pressure?
Certainly. You can't lose to the Chiefs 4 times in the postseason. You just can't. And as we know, as Jacob made the joke earlier this week, that's what the Bills do. They lose 4 times in a row during the postseason. But I think there is so much pressure. Even going to Arrowhead, Burrowhead, and trying to win there this Sunday. The Bills, I mean, if you can't win this game where it finally feels like you're the better team, and maybe it felt like that in years past for Bills fans, but there's just some vibe going around where it's just like it just feels different. And if you can't do it this year, you're gonna have a long look in the mirror come Monday morning and go like, I don't know if we'll ever do it. And maybe you'll convince yourself in 9 months that you'll do it again, but I don't know. There just seems to be so much pressure. I said, and I think Everett Henry in the chat got on my case, that if they don't win this game, what are they going to do with Sean McDermott? Too late in the coaching carousel to do something there.
Ooh, Mike McCarthy.
But Sean McDermott, I mean, if you can't get it done 4 straight times in that game, and all games have been very close, and as we know, players win close games, coaches lose close games. I don't know how you keep going. And I think Sean McDermott's a great coach. What's the old cliche? He's the LeBron James of Zach Taylor's, or he's the LeBron James of Marvin Lewis's. I don't know, but they're going to have some serious questions on that in that roster.
I like that name, Kinner. Mike McCarthy, he wins.
I didn't think of that
and
till
if
now,
you
but
give
yeah.
him that talent, maybe he's not so gung-ho to get into the Saints building. Maybe he waits and sees if any of these guys make moves. I mean, we haven't talked about the Eagles having a whole lot of pressure, but they're 6-point favorites over the Commanders.
Well, they're going to win.
We know how. Well, sure, but we know how their fan base reacts when things don't go their way. If they get, if they lose, if the Commanders score 40 points on them, could Sirianni be ran out of town? And then that's immediately the best coaching job in the entire league with the talent they have on that roster. I mean, we were talking about Philly last year running Sirianni out of town when they made the playoffs and lost. Obviously, this is a little different. They've won a couple playoff games, but still, maybe something in the cards with how that organization reacts. So I don't know. Maybe McCarthy wouldn't hold off. I wouldn't be shocked if the Bills lost this game if they fired McDermott and just promoted Joe Brady with what he's done with that offense this year.
Yeah, he'd be the best hire.
That's what I thought the Tampa Bay Buccaneers should have done. I thought they should have fired Todd Bowles and just promoted Liam Cohen. I think that with a defensive head coach, if you have an offensive coordinator who's as good as those guys seem to be, and you're going to lose them to someone else, and you don't know for sure that you have the head coach that can get you over that hump, I would start considering firing defensive head coaches and hiring my own offensive coordinator in this current era where you just can't hold on to guys.
Yeah, the Bulls thing with the Bucks, I forgot about that too. Like that situation's weird over there.
So
like they're not
weird.
They're just content. It reminds me of Pittsburgh a little bit. They're just content. Like I don't think anyone looked at, the season that Baker had. I mean, him and Joe Burrow had the 2 best seasons this year statistically. I know Josh Allen's in line to win an MVP. Lamar Jackson was, but when you look at the passing numbers, both threw for over 4,500 yards, both threw for over 40 touchdowns, both completed over 70% of their passes. I mean, it was a wild season for Baker. But you got all of that, and like you got that production. Do the Bucks feel like the Bengals? Where the Bengals are like, we just got to get a defense right. The Bucks still feel like they're miles behind everybody else, even with getting the quarterback contribution there. So I don't know. That's a weird thing there. But yes, the Brady thing too is interesting. You're right, just to move him up. But McCarthy in Buffalo would interest me a lot. I want to rant on this to close out. Someone said it's just you're being a crybaby Browns fan, probably. But Amari Cooper, who I loved his run in Cleveland, absolutely loved it. Not, I'm going to sound like a hypocrite. That's fine, but. Everyone that said, oh, man, the Browns, Amari Cooper wants out because the Browns are horrible. The Browns were horrible, but Amari Cooper was horrible in Cleveland this year too. I mean, to go from 1,300 yards last year and just fantastic to just completely falling off a cliff, everyone thought, man, he's going to go to Buffalo and just absolutely kill it. And the Bills gave up a 3rd-round pick to get him, and he has been god-awful. I mean, the Browns, they're awful too. But I thought for sure if there was something left in the tank for Cooper, going to play with Josh Allen would get that out of him. But it's not there. But Amari Cooper, he only has 8 yards for the Bills in the playoffs. And he says right now that winning is the only thing that matters. He told SI, he told Sports Illustrated, I'm very satisfied. Okay. I've never been this far in the playoffs, obviously. Every receiver wants to have 10, 20 catches in a game, but that's not always how the cookie crumbles. I love that reference, by the way. It's not always the most beneficial thing for the team. Winning is obviously way more important, and there's many more ways to win as far as that goes. Stop acting like he's acting like he's sacrificing catches and numbers for the betterment of the team. They didn't give up a 3rd-round pick for him to come over and have 8 catches in 3 games. Like, what are you talking about? Like, I don't hate Amari Cooper by any means, but like that's a weird little way to kind of shift it. He's getting no pressure for how bad he's been in Buffalo, and Buffalo is not getting criticized at all for giving up a 3rd-rounder for him. That was a ton to give up for him. The Browns gave up a 5th-round pick to get prime Amari Cooper. They gave up a 3rd to get this, and he's trying to make it sound like, oh, yeah, I would like more catches. But I'm doing this for the betterment of the team. You stink for the betterment of the team. They didn't give up a 3rd-round pick for you to get an A+ on a group project that you didn't contribute towards. Like, that drives me up the wall. I just wanted to rant on that. There you go. Do with that what you will.
Well, I have a question for you, Kenner, because I asked Trace this yesterday, and I think it's interesting. What do you think, and I'm asking this as a Bengals fan because we clearly have 2 elite wide receivers in this city. What do you think about the Chiefs? They had Tyreek Hill, who's a top 3 wide receiver in the league. They get rid of him. They win back-to-back Super Bowls.
Yep.
You have the Buffalo Bills, who have Stephon Diggs, who is without a doubt a top 10 wide receiver. They get rid of him. They looked more primed to win the Super Bowl than they ever have before. You have the Philadelphia Eagles, who have a stacked roster, and Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown really haven't done a whole lot this postseason. What do you think about wide receivers? While they are important in the regular season, it seems more often than not we get to the postseason, and it's these older guys, the Rob Gronkowskis, the Travis Kelce's who don't do anything all year, or it's just random Tyler Higbee that. And I don't want to just keep naming tight ends, but it seems like the game shifts to where wide receivers are so crucial to a part of the regular season. You get to the postseason, and that's not what is winning these games. It is run game, and it is just random tight ends or random weapons. I just don't know if you have a take on that, and I don't know what to think of it either.
No, it's like the NBA. You don't need bigs to win in the regular season, but you need bigs to win in the postseason.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a comparison there. Look, I blame the obsession with having to have so many elite wide receivers on one roster. I blame the Bengals, and not in a bad way. Like, teams saw Joe Burrow, with T. Higgins and Jamar Chase, and just saw how prolific that offense was. And it was like, okay, we need to get that. Then you look at the Eagles; they had their 2 big playmakers. The Dolphins go and add Waddle. They draft Waddle and they go and they get Tyreek Hill as well. And then you look at what the Eagles have done. You started seeing teams all around the league stack their wide receivers to have a dominant 1-2 punch. But you look at the teams that keep winning Super Bowls; they don't have those 1-2 punches. So it is kind of ironic that while everyone's leaning towards the blueprint that they're the most exciting team in the regular season, that's not the blueprint that's winning Super Bowls at the end of the day, although the Bengals came very, very close, So we'll see. But, it's a good question. That's why I kept doing the whole question of when Burrow says we need T. Higgins. I'm like, don't know if you do, but I get what your guys' point is. Based on the personnel they have, he is a need based on the contributions they're getting or lack thereof from everybody else.
Yeah, I think that conversation has always come down to what we believe the Bengals to be able to do outside of the T. Higgins signing. Like, if we're a normal organization that operates as a winning organization, maybe you don't sign T. Higgins because you can use that $30 million on another blue chip player. I just don't think the Bengals ever would, and that's kind of been my point the entire time. If the only $30 million player you can get is T. Higgins because you're not going to go spend it anywhere else, then you got to get good players in the building. So you got to keep them here.
Okay.
Well, I will say, Reed, you don't have to have – someone doesn't have to be out for you to come do the show, by the way. You could take advantage of the couple open chairs in the studio, but we are done today.
A couple open chairs.
Yeah.
Hey, I appreciate the offer. Who knows? This is a slow part of the year. I was recently accused by coworkers that I don't work hard enough. So
oh, boy.
So, maybe I'll come on the show.
You don't work hard enough? What do you do?
Nothing.
Or don't you do?
Nothing.
There you go.
I just act like it.
There you go. And by the way, if there might be some changes going to that studio, maybe we might be losing some chairs. I'm not really sure what's happening there, but we'll find a room. We'll have a fold out chair that has your name on it. How about that?
Get rid of lawn chair.
A lawn chair. Yep. Good. All right, dudes. Have a good weekend. See you guys next week. This has been Off the Bench presented by United Dairy Farmers.